Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Critique Revolve. It is that time of year again in which Hollywood tells us, the humble masses, what is truly the best pictures of the year, which movies have reached this pinnacle of capability, artistic value, storytelling, acting, makeup, all kinds of things.
The arbiters of the art.
The heralds of perfection. They have come down from Mount Olympus to tell us what we should be spending our time and money on, which is something we know all of us constantly are waiting for, with the ever-increasing number of people not watching the Oscars. No, it is that time of year again. And the weird thing is, while I'm making fun of it, I do enjoy this time of year. I do enjoy the Oscars, not necessarily from a pomp and circumstance. That's not what sells it to me. I don't care who's wearing or anything among those lines. But I do find it interesting to see kind of a tree ring element, a litmus test of where Hollywood is at this time in history, where culture is at this time, what movies do get recognized for what they've brought to the table and what they've done for cinema as an art form and pop culture.
I think that's really where we come in to this. Like, when it comes to the Oscars, we're not like fanboys of the Oscars. There are a lot of film enthusiasts who are all about the pomp and circumstance. We're more or less lovers of movies, but we involve ourselves in the Oscar race purely from the cultural standpoint. We want to see where the art is currently, culturally speaking.
And whether or not we agree with what wins somewhat validates our existence as critics, I think.
And I do feel like, despite what some say in the mainstream, I do believe the Oscars, and I know we just made a joke at the beginning about the arbiters and they tell us what's good, but I do feel like the Oscars is one of the last award shows that there is an integrity there. I mean, there are moments in their history where they have lost that integrity, but for the most part, they seem to find themselves back to a place that most of us film fans can agree. Even if we disagree on certain nominated pictures, we can understand where they're coming from.
Well, and I think it's something as lovers of film, there's a history there. There's a mark of time. There is, last December, I went to Hollywood. I went to LA for an unrelated issue. And I went to the theater in which the Oscars are actually held. And I see on the pillars of that place, you walk through, they have every Oscar-winning Best Picture film listed for each year, and they've got slots all the way up to like 2050. And it's just, it's something about the history, the art form, loving it, and for all its warts and all, that gives it a little bit of reverence or makes it feel a little special. I don't know. It's unquantifiable necessarily.
It's not nostalgia. You know what is not quantifiable? I think that's what it is. It has nothing to do with nostalgia. I just think it's about the love of the art form.
Yeah.
Whether you agree with the accolades and whether or not they should be handed to this filmmaker or that filmmaker, that's besides the point. It's the history of the institution.
Well, and that's the thing, is like standing in Dolby Theater, it was a kind of surreal experience, and this is completely off topic, but fuck it, we're here. Because it was both, this is where giants have stood kind of vibe. Spielberg, Lucas, Coppola. These people, Henry Ford, or John Ford, these people who have been here and done so much had walked through these doors, and yet it was also a physical place. It was a place that I could touch. It was a place that was real. It's not some fictitious building in the sky or Atlantis that is inaccessible. This is a real place with an address. People get mail. That was a weird, surreal moment of history all at the same time. It was fun. And so I think that's one of the reasons that people listen to our show, and that's one of the reasons we like doing this stuff, is we care about the art form. So with that said, we're going to have a discussion about the nominees for the 2024 Oscars. We have had them come out. We're going to talk about what ones we've seen, what we think might be in the running, some of the controversy over a few of them. It's going to be a fairly free-form discussion, but this will be the first installment of our coverage, I would say. Then we're going to have another one later where we've talked about what we have had time to see and what we would rank as winners and what we think will take away the gold. And then we will have a discussion about what won, how we felt, what was correct, what was the shakeups, as we've done in years past. So,
will we hold back on the ones that we vehemently disagree with, or will we remain neutral? Let's
well, I think it depends on how I feel.
That's the direction I was going to.
So, we're going to just start out with the big guns, and then we'll work our way down. For Best Picture, the nominees are American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, Poor Things, and The Zone of Interest. And what an interesting list this is, because Hollywood has had a rough year. 2023 has not been a great year for blockbusters. It has not been a great year for what everyone was banking their retirement funds on, which was the superhero movie.
Oh,
Disney has lost $1 billion just about in a single year. And I think the end of the superhero era is upon us, and people don't really know what to do. Warner Brothers has been shaking things up by canceling, rebooting, fucking merging with Paramount. Who knows whatever they're doing to stave off bankruptcy. Indie darlings have been talked about with more praise than big multi-million-dollar legacy sequels to popular franchises. It's a weird time.
There's a reckoning. And when you look at some of the Best Picture nominees, you can see this reckoning happening, culturally speaking. I mean, you have a movie like Barbie as Best Picture. You have Oppenheimer. You actually have films that people have seen, which has been, when I say people, I've seen all these movies, but I'm talking about the general public. You have films that are being nominated for Best Picture that people either want to see or have seen. Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to see a Scorsese picture? Maestro with Bradley Cooper. We all know Bradley Cooper's on the rise as a director. Oppenheimer, one of the best Nolan pictures to date.
And the Barbenheimer phenomenon that captivated the year.
I cannot wait to start reading actual film historians that start writing about that entire phenomenon, because it is interesting. Despite my feelings on the whole mess that the Barbie movie represents, the whole Barbenheimer marketing phenomenon is fucking fantastic. And I would love to, I think it's one of those moments in history that are worthy of discussion. And it's probably going to be books written about it. It'll probably be studied in film school.
I mean, it absolutely will be, dude. Like, this time in history for film school will be full chapters between the absolute inability to turn a profit with Star Wars that Disney has had is just mind-boggling from both the art, film, a political, and from a financial standpoint.
The quick fall of superhero films.
The just disastrous behind-the-scene interference of the DCEU and how categorically not to run a company. The
rise and fall of streaming services, and what it means for the television and film circles,
and the viral marketing being more advantageous than multi-million-dollar campaigns made by experts.
Yeah,
because of a meme. And some fancy editing by people who turned an atomic blast pink.
I'm envious of the film students currently. I mean, this is a time, what I personally am a little frustrated with the time we're in currently, but from a point of scholarship,
it's fascinating.
It is.
It's morbidly fascinating because you're kind of like watching the death throes of an organism, and you're like, wow, this is fantastic information. And it's also something terrible happening.
Yeah. because we're watching the death of something, but also
Or the
the
rebirth.
birth of something else, something different. Hopefully, something that will.
Well, Hollywood is nothing if not a phoenix, right?
Yeah.
It flares brightly, is consumed by its own efforts, turns into ash,
Oh wow.
and then stumbles out, reborn anew into something new to repeat the cycle. That is what Hollywood has done
Yeah.
since its inception. So it's an interesting time.
I
It
don't.
is.
I don't think we've had a shakeup like this since the studios and theaters were broken up. I think this is the biggest Hollywood shakeup. You could argue that the rise of piracy in the early 2000s was
See,
a
I
huge
wouldn't-
shakeup.
wouldn't.
You can argue it, but I would say this is probably the second big foundational change.
The distribution change in the 50s and 60s was monumental, and the streaming platform change has completely changed the way that films are made. The way behind them, how we consider what's good, run minutes, like viewed minutes versus Nielsen ratings and all kinds of other things. I mean, I know that's television, but this is the next biggest thing. How streaming changed the landscape of film forever. And for better or worse. So here we are. Now, of these nominations for Best Picture, I have seen, let's see, so far, 1, 2, 3, 4. I have seen 4 of them. And that is Barbie, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, and Oppenheimer. What about you, Mike? Which ones have you seen?
Out of these best pictures, I've seen 1, 2, 3. But interesting enough, I have interest in seeing all the other nominees. Last year, I was not looking forward to seeing some of them. This year, I have interest in seeing American Fiction. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, you've Sterling K. Brown. Maestro, I have not seen yet. Bradley Cooper's great. Poor Things was something I wanted to see long before.
That looks weird as fuck, but I was interested in it.
Yeah, so there's things that are actually interesting here. Things that I would see whether or not they were nominated, whether or not we were doing this show.
I don't see something as painful on the surface as Triangle of Sadness.
Mhm.
That's already a marked improvement.
Yeah, I mean, we could say we had our problems with Barbie, but
We had problems with
it's
Barbie,
an entertaining
but it wasn't
movie.
hard to watch.
No, it's an entertaining movie.
And it does have merits.
Yeah.
Whereas Triangle of Sadness was hours of agony, much like a tooth canal or
Triangle
root
of
canal.
Pain is what it
Right.
probably should have been called.
Right. Like, performing surgery on yourself while awake and conscious. That kind of experience. No, I am excited. I would say, so I have seen Barbie, The Holdovers, I said Killers of the Flower Moon, and Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer and Barbie, I don't know many people who didn't see both of those movies due to the viral campaign.
What are your thoughts on Holdovers?
The Holdovers, I really enjoyed. It is not a blockbuster. It is not something that is going to be for everybody. But what I think it does very, very well is it's well written, it's beautifully acted, it's well made, and it's a human drama piece. And I think it's something that, unlike a lot of movies these days, can resonate with people and doesn't paint anybody in a horrifically negative light, which seems to be the goal of a lot of entertainment these days, is some sort of moral grandstanding and punishment for certain groups or individuals, whereas The Holdovers just tells a story about people. And I really liked what it had to say, even if it's not something I think everyone would enjoy.
Now, are there any movies that you feel got snubbed that should have been nominated that you've seen this past year? Because for me, one is the film directed by Ben Affleck that came out earlier this year or last year, and that was Air. I feel like that movie should have been nominated.
Yeah.
Really good
Yeah.
picture. The other one is Asteroid City, directed by
Yep.
Wes
I was
Anderson.
going to say that one.
And then Saltburn, directed by Emerald Fennell. I thought for sure that movie wasn't going to get nominated.
It feels like the movies that made it, like they stopped making choices come October.
It did, right?
Like nothing since, which is usually when Oscar period is. Like they stopped. Anything that came out afterwards was just not going to be considered. Because Air was definitely one that I enjoyed quite a lot. I thought it was really well done, well written.
Very well acted. Everyone's performances in that movie, I can't believe none of them got nominated for their acting roles, let alone Best Picture.
Yeah, that was surprising. Saltburn, I have not seen it yet, but I've heard a lot about it. A lot of good things, I should say, about it.
Very disturbing, but very well made movie. It's another one of those films that are a secret gothic film.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that we've talked about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Asteroid City, I love Wes Anderson, so that does feel like a bit of a shame. And it's weird to me that other ones had made it through that I hadn't heard much about, like such as Past Lives or The Zone of Interest. I hadn't heard anything about either of those, and maybe that's my ignorance showing.
Sofia Coppola's picture, Priscilla, which is another Elvis Presley story, but it's from the perspective of Priscilla Presley. I thought that was going to get nominated for something.
Well, that feels almost like it was just stuck in the shadow of last year's super recent movie.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
But honestly, other than that, those few might be the only ones because 2023 had a lot of crap. Unfortunately, I remember it more. When I look back at the movies of this year, I think more of the bombs and just the completely inability to get off the ground with some things, such as The Marvels, Indiana Jones 5, The Dial of Destiny, the lukewarm as fuck reception to Mission Impossible, Ant-Man Quantumania, bleh, you know?
Yeah.
Even like Guardians of the Galaxy 3 barely squeaking out, profitability.
Listen, I'm not one for superhero films to be nominated for Oscars just because, but how did Guardians of the Galaxy, if you have movies like Barbie on this, how the hell did you not have Guardians on here? Because Guardians was a solid human story. Like, that was a human story.
Yeah.
One of the most human stories Marvel has told since the first Iron Man.
Yeah, maybe.
But culturally speaking, maybe it's not relevant enough because I know the criteria for Best Picture is more than just simply the movie.
Well, and that's the other thing, though, too, is that there's other ones that I was surprised by that didn't see any kind of recognition. The Mario Brothers movie not getting anything for visual effects. It's a gorgeous movie.
Yeah.
And although, nothing else super big about it, but I was kind of surprised by that. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse gets no talks at all.
Yeah, it's really strange because I feel like the first one is a superior movie, but the second one is still exceptionally well made.
But that's the thing.
And for it not even being recognized, even in the animation category,
and that's the thing.
Seems a little strange.
This was a year where people just almost didn't go to the movies. Like, Disney couldn't pay people to show up in theaters, whether it was the Marvels or Wish or Elemental or literally fucking anything they tried.
You also had the strike.
You had the strike, which really threw a wrench in a lot of people's plans and a lot of announcements or build up to releases. And then you had things that were like, not bad, but just didn't go anywhere. Like we said, Mission Impossible, Dungeons and Dragons, that movie from earlier in the year. Creed 3 was like talked about for a hot second until, allegations. It was just weird year filled with Blue Beetle and all of DC's decisions to just put out the crap at the end and then say none of it matters. I think the year was more hallmarked by...
It's so true,
man. The
year
was more hallmarked not by quality films being made, but big ticket things that 5 years ago would have been gangbusters.
Yeah.
Not doing shit. And other things that didn't deserve the shit they got not going anywhere financially. It was just a weird year. like a threshold. Like we said, there's a reckoning coming. This was the year that threshold was crossed,
Yeah.
where the easy money to be made for certain types of movies is gone. And the new wave of, well, what does Hollywood do next? What do the next 10 years look like? Is where we're waiting for now. I mean, for Christ's sake, Taylor Swift's tour made more money than most fucking movies this year because it was watchable in theaters.
Yeah.
If that doesn't say a lot. So I do think there were a couple that didn't get quite as enough recognition. But again, when I look at a lot of what came out, I was like, wasn't a great year.
It wasn't a great year, but looking at the Best Picture category, is there anything on here that you're completely opposed to? Like, is there anything you're just like, no?
So I can't speak for most of them because I haven't seen them yet. So when we do our second installment, I'll have a better standing in there.
But you know of these movies.
But I know of these movies.
And you know about them.
Right. I this is going to piss some people off, but I might say Barbie. Because while I think it has merits, I don't think there's anything about it that would qualify it as Best Picture material outside of its pop culture influence and popularity.
But that's part of Best Picture.
Well, that's the thing. It depends on what your definition is.
But that's why it won't win.
If you're looking for what was the best made, hits all the marks, hallmark of cinema and film, no. If you're talking what was popular and what was resonating with audiences and what people talked and cared about, sure, absolutely. That is absolutely in the running then.
The Academy,
it was a behemoth this year.
The Academy agrees with you for the most part. I mean, and I agree with you. If you remember, let's go back to like 2 or 3 months ago when we talked about Barbie
that's the
specifically
sound.
and the Oscars. I believe I called pretty much everything that I got nominated for. I said the movie will be nominated for Best Picture because of its production design, the costume design, the choreography. It's a pretty picture.
It's gorgeous looking.
But I said it will not be directed. It will not win for Best. It will not be nominated, I said, for Best Directing. And it won't be nominated for Best Writing. And it probably won't be nominated for Best Acting.
Which there's a few of those that
But I
surprised
put a question
us.
mark there, and I said maybe Margot Robbie would be nominated. There could be an argument for her to be nominated, but she won't win. Well, it turns out she wasn't nominated for the role. Greta Gerwig was not nominated for directing, but the movie was nominated for every other category. And the only reason why it was nominated for adapted screenplay is because there is a lot of tough competition this year. There are a lot of good pictures in that screenwriting category. So what did they do? But Thomas, really quick, that being said, I don't have a problem with it being nominated for Best Picture because it does fit the criteria of what Best Picture is. It won't win though.
So that's the one where I'm like, it's not that it doesn't have some strong merits. It's just that it's kind of a mess as well. We haven't discussed this movie yet. We will. So that's one maybe where I'm like, I get it from a popularity standpoint, but I can't really give it to it from other traditionally what I would consider Best Picture standpoints. When I look at some of the others, like I said, I don't know about American Fiction or Anatomy of a Fall. The Holdovers is surprising to me. I will say I enjoyed it. I thought it would be up for performances and writing, and honestly, probably that's it. I didn't think it would see Best Picture.
Neither did I.
But that's kind of indicative of the year we've had.
Yeah.
Killers of the Flower Moon is an obvious choice. Scorsese, DiCaprio, De Niro, the subject material, the cinematography. There's a lot going for that one. I'm not sure if I agree with that. We'll discuss that. Oppenheimer was huge and very well made. Ran a little long, but that's not necessarily a mark against it. As I've said before, is that I was never bored while watching it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, while I've heard great things about American Fiction, Maestro, and Poor Things, I'm not familiar with them at this time to really give something I would feel credible standing behind for Best Picture. So honestly, outside of Oppenheimer, Barbie, and Killers of the Flower Moon, I had no fucking idea what was going to be up for grabs this year. I'll be honest with you. So
what about Best Directing?
Best Directing, you have...
Or directing, I should say.
Anatomy of a Fall, Killers of the Flower Moon with Martin Scorsese, Oppenheimer with Chris Nolan, Poor Things with Yorgos Lanthimos, and Zone of Interest with Jonathan Glazer. And Anatomy of a Fall was Justine Triet. Again, hard to say. I've seen 2 out of the 5 here. Killers of the Flower Moon, Scorsese does a great job. I don't think it's his best work. I think he's had much stronger runs at the title beforehand, though I could see him walking away with it from Hollywood, from his age, from the gravitas behind a lot of that movie. And it's a gorgeous-looking, well-acted movie, so if that's all we're talking about, it could pull it off. Honestly, though, I think Chris Nolan with Oppenheimer he's
taken everything,
fucking running with it. He's been
Oppenheimer's
taking a lot.
taken everything at the Oscars.
I really hope it does in a lot of ways, because that was such a fucking breath of fresh air. That, regardless of whether I liked Barbie and Oppenheimer were so fucking enjoyable from just being different than superheroes and the same kind of shtick we had seen for years now that hadn't really been enjoyable since 2019. That seeing them rewarded for that is, I think, refreshing, if nothing else.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think Oppenheimer is going to benefit from the fact that it is directed by a well-known director that is not only a mainstream director, but he's also an art director who
and a
wins
pop culture
Oscars.
director.
Yes, the powers behind Oppenheimer have everything going for it. It has notoriety, it has quality, it has notability. Everyone knows the story of Oppenheimer for the most part, some vague recollection.
Or at least know who he is.
You have Cillian Murphy in Oppenheimer. You have Robert Downey Jr. in Oppenheimer, 2 people who are very, very popular. Oppenheimer is going to probably take almost every single award. And that takes us to the leading role in acting. Do you see any nominees here that you are surprised to see? I know you're not familiar with all of these names here, but
the only one I'm not really familiar with is Coleman Domingo for Rustin. Bradley Cooper being nominated surprises nobody. He's a phenomenal actor. He's been here multiple times. I think it's just a matter of time for him, truthfully.
Yeah, Coleman Domingo is the only person I'm unfamiliar with as well, because you have Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers.
Classic, fucking amazing actor in everything he does. Truly, truly a master of the craft. Cillian Murphy, absolutely fantastic. Love him from not only this movie, but also Peaky Blinders.
I'm going to say one thing. I'm going to say that I've been talking about Cillian Murphy for over 20 years, and no one's been listening to me. I've been saying this guy is great since I was first introduced to his performance in 28 Days. Is that what it was?
28 Days. The first one, yeah.
Yes, where he shows full penis, full frontal nudity.
That's dedication. Just starting out, dick out.
That's where I was first introduced to him and his penis. And since then, I have been a fan of his. I've watched everything he has been in, and no one has given him a true chance until Oppenheimer. Yes, he has a very loyal fan base. I would say a lot of his fame, his mainstream fame, probably started with that TV series that you always talk about.
Peaky Blinders.
Peaky Blinders.
That's what put him into everyone's radar.
Yeah. And now with his role in Oppenheimer, he's finally reached the status that he actually deserves. He is one of those actors.
So he's got a strong contender element.
I think he's going to win. Well, but we have Jeffrey Wright.
There's Jeffrey Wright, who's always been a strong actor who is also somebody I think hasn't gotten enough recognition over the years, but he's also somebody who, whenever you see him, he does a fantastic job. And I haven't seen American Fiction yet, so I have to wait to make a judgment.
But we know these actors.
But I know his capabilities.
Yeah.
And if it's a solidly well-written movie and is in the running not only for Best Picture, but is also in the running for adapted screenplay, that's pretty freaking convincing.
Yeah, and we're going to do another show.
Yeah.
After this, we're going to go back and watch all of the nominated pictures, and then we'll talk about the movies that we think will win and should win, as well as actors, directing, all of that stuff.
In the actor role,
but just looking at this leading role right now,
strong.
Just knowing what these actors are capable of, I'm a little conflicted as to who I would like to win just based on how much I like these actors. Bradley Cooper, I love him. Paul Giamatti, I love him. Cillian Murphy, I love him. Jeffrey Wright, I love him.
That's one of those ones where
it's very conflicting.
That's one of those ones though where it's kind of like the best option, because everybody, for the most part, again, I don't know Coleman Domingo enough to speak to it. Everyone who's in here for the most part is phenomenal. So if any of them win, I'm not going to be upset about who won.
Yeah.
There's not like it's going to be like, who the fuck voted for? You know, you're not going to be upset with whoever loses to whomever in this category.
Yeah.
Now, actor in a supporting role, we've got Sterling K. Brown for American Fiction, Robert De Niro, Killers of the Flower Moon, Robert Downey Jr., Oppenheimer, Ryan Gosling for Barbie, and Mark Ruffalo for Poor Things.
All
strong.
All strong actors. There's no questions of like, why the fuck would you nominate this person?
Although, I will say I'm biased. I want fucking Sterling K. Brown to walk away with this. I haven't seen the movie, but I've seen Supernatural. And if you've known any of the episodes we've reviewed with him, he's goddamn amazing.
He
really doesn't
good.
age, which I'm pissed off about because I'm grayer than he is, and I'm like 20 years younger, which is horseshit.
Well,
but that would be so nice to see him go from Supernatural to television to the Oscars. Man, that would be so cool.
His career is similar in trajectory as Cillian Murphy.
Yeah.
Start off small, don't really light the world on fire, but you have this
a
steady
burn.
This body of work that just builds until you reach that moment.
Yeah. Now, Robert De Niro, who doesn't like him, but he's won a lot, so I'm less inclined. Robert Downey Jr., I love him, but I don't know if this was a great... I don't know. It all hinges at the end for his character in this movie.
I believe Robert De Niro will not win. I'm actually surprised he won or got nominated. I mean, again, I haven't seen Killers of the Flower Moon yet.
It's not his best work.
I feel like you have people like Robert Downey Jr. who's done, I believe his role in Oppenheimer is probably some of his best work. Ryan Gosling in Barbie.
That would be just fucking hilarious.
I don't want to get into his role too much because I'm going to save it for when we discuss Barbie down the road, but he probably is the most cohesive arc in that movie.
He does a great job for what he's given in this film. He does a great job. I'm amazed that he got nominated.
Well, people like villains, and he was the villain in the movie, and he was the most... I know a lot of people are talking about this because he was nominated, but Margot Robbie wasn't, and Greta Gerwig was not nominated as a director. But, I mean, if you watch the movie, it's not hard. If you understand movies and what makes a good character, it's not hard to understand why Margot Robbie was not nominated. She was almost a half a character, and her arc was shared with America Ferrera. Two characters equal one. They're both extensions of each other. And because of that, you have kind of a fragmented arc. Whereas with Ryan Gosling, he was the villain and the most coherent thread that kept the entire movie together, both narratively speaking as well as ideologically speaking.
Yeah.
Mark Ruffalo, good actor. This is another very competitive...
Anybody could win and you could make an argument.
Yeah.
So... actress in a leading role, we have Annette Bening for Nyad, Lily Gladstone for Killers of the Flower Moon, Sandra Huller, Anatomy of a Fall, Carey Mulligan, Maestro, and Emma Stone, Poor Things. I'm I can't speak to
All these are
most of
good,
these,
too.
but I know that Emma Stone is doing something very different with
Yeah.
Poor Things, and that has been a critical darling since it came out. So that might be a strong contender.
The only person I'm not familiar with is Sandra Hüller
Mm-hmm.
or Holler.
Yeah, I have to see that movie to make a judgment on that.
Yeah. Everyone else I'm familiar with. I've gone back and watched some Lily Gladstone pictures. I thought she was new, but she's done other films,
Right.
and she's definitely a capable actor.
I think the supporting role is more competitive, at least from my knowledge right now.
Yeah.
You have Emily Blunt from Oppenheimer, Danielle Brooks from The Color Purple, America Ferrera from Barbie, Jodie Foster for Nyad, and Divine Joy Randolph from The Holdovers. This is a tough one. Danielle Brooks I haven't seen in The Color Purple, but she is absolutely phenomenal in Orange is the New Black and carries most of the emotional weight in that show for multiple years. Her getting recognized would be fantastic. Jodie Foster is a longtime veteran,
I love Jodie Foster.
but Divine Joy Randolph in The Holdovers
She's gonna win.
is fucking great, has a heartbreaking yet reserved performance.
That's the word I was looking for, because
Yeah.
it's subtle. She's like a real person.
She feels 1000%. That's probably the best part of The Holdovers.
Yeah.
Everyone feels so fucking real. And it's a movie about literally nothing going on
Yeah.
for the most part.
It's about winter break.
It's underplaying
It's about
it.
winter break at a boarding school.
Three people being stuck together for the couple weeks in the holiday season. And
I really liked her a lot. I did
did
not
too.
expect to like her in the movie just because I didn't know of her. I didn't really know anything about the movie when I was getting ready to watch it, except
I
that
just knew Paul Giamatti.
that's all I knew. Oh,
Yeah.
and the director was the gentleman that directed Sideways, which I
Right,
love that
right.
movie. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch this. And then she's the character that really, I mean, not to say anything about Paul Giamatti, but he's great in it. But this was the surprise.
She was the standout, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah. So either of them I think would be phenomenal simply because America Ferrera, I'm sorry, her character doesn't go through a change. Her character is a author surrogate mouthpiece.
But I would also say the same thing about Emily Blunt. I don't think, I honestly,
she's good, but
I,
she's not.
I don't know if it's worthy of being nominated.
I don't think it was a strong enough performance. She's done better work.
there wasn't enough in
Yeah.
Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
It was a great supporting element. So if they're looking at it like that,
Well, it is supporting role.
yes, if they're solely looking at it like that, then okay.
Yeah.
But I feel like if they would have given her maybe 5 to 10 more minutes of screen time that was about her and added something of value to the overall story of Oppenheimer, then I probably would be more on board with this. And I feel the same way about America Ferrara. I think the reason why she was nominated was only because of that monologue,
Yeah.
which didn't really quite make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
When she's talking about the plights of women to a room full of women
who are
also-
not
who already
familiar
understand.
with it because they're from the Barbie world.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't know in the first place what the fuck she's talking about because Barbie world is perfect. I don't want to get into it.
Yeah.
We don't have time for that. So that's a contentious role as well. There's a lot of possibilities there. Going a little faster, cinematography. You have El Condi. I don't know that one. Killers of the Flower
Beautiful
Moon.
movie, dude.
Okay.
Very controversial. It's highly political. And if people watch it, they might scream woke if they're not watching it as a socio-political piece because it's highly political. It's a
Okay.
vampire story,
Oh. Well, that's usually fun.
but it's a political vampire story. It's very fucking
Well,
smart.
you know, we're living in a political vampire nightmare world, so
And
makes
Thomas,
sense.
the cinematography is fucking outstanding.
See, I have to see that one, but you guys see Killers of the Flower Moon because while I'm not the biggest fan of the movie overall because of some fallbacks, it is gorgeous to look at. It is really fucking pretty, really well made. There's some scenes that are just you can just watch all day, and it takes every element of the landscape and the time period to make the best of it. So I think that's a strong one. Oppenheimer is a strong one. The entire movie is about watching a nuke go off.
It's really hard to say, right?
it's a tough one.
It is a very tough category.
Yeah. Costume design, you have Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. I'll be honest, I think Barbie will take that one. That is one of the elements in which they were absolutely stand out.
I agree.
And they had so many fucking costumes. It looks gorgeous.
But still, tough category.
Still tough category, though. Still fucking tough.
Directing?
We did directing.
Oh, did we? Okay.
We talked about that one, didn't we?
Oh, yeah. You're right.
And then you have production design. It's got Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, Poor Things. Very exact same fucking movies.
Mm-hmm.
I think Barbie wins that too. That movie looks amazing. It's both stylized and realistic. It's vibrant and gorgeous to look at.
See, this is hard to say about this one. I'll have to watch all these movies again.
I know.
Because Oppenheimer's production design is truly remarkable. Poor Things, from what I've seen a few PR snippets accumulating to about maybe 4 or 5 total minutes of screen time.
Mm-hmm.
It looks great. It looks fantastic.
Well, and Killers of the Flower Moon is super fucking authentic.
Yeah.
Looks amazing. Costumes are on point.
So it's hard. It's hard. This one's hard.
This one is hard.
Production design.
And that's the thing. I'd rather have ones where I'm like, man, anybody could win this.
Yeah.
Than if this wins, I walk out, which was Triangle of Sadness the other year.
Yeah.
And then we've got visual effects. We have The Creator, Godzilla -1, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, and Napoleon. This one, I have to see a few of them that are on this list, but I have heard phenomenal things about both The Creator as far as visuals go.
I think Godzilla
and Godzilla -1. Godzilla -1 came out of nowhere.
I think there's a love affair in Hollywood with Godzilla films. It literally harkens back to the
40s,
earliest
man.
forms
50s.
of cinema and the talkies, if you will.
The talkies. Jesus Christ. It's 1927, man.
Like this movie is like built on the back of film history. So I feel like the Academy is going to all cling to that. Plus, I have not seen this movie yet. I'm going to go see it probably tonight.
I need to see it.
But I've heard nothing but good things about this movie. I'm surprised it wasn't nominated for Best Picture because I've heard so many fantastic things from film fans about this movie.
Well, it's also not nominated for International Feature Film, which
seems strange.
What?
When
everyone loves this movie.
Everyone's talking about this movie.
It came out of nowhere, blew everyone's mind. It's incredibly well made and well written and well acted from everybody I've heard. I haven't heard a single bad thing about this movie.
Hey, you want to go see the black and white version tonight? I was going to. That's what I'm going to go see, is the black and white version.
Fucker, maybe. I'll have to think.
7 o'clock.
Damn it. 7 o'clock? All right.
Yeah.
All right. And then at least my personal favorites, writing for adapted and original screenplay. For adapted, we have American Fiction, Barbie, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, The Zone of Interest. Hard to say because I haven't seen 3 of them, and the other 2 I would not say are strong necessarily.
Why is Oppenheimer adapted? Was it a book?
Because it's a real person. His biography basically automatically puts it into adapted. If it's a biopic. I don't know that Oppenheimer was the best screenplay. I feel like that could have been cut by 30 minutes and you wouldn't lose much. And it's not anything that I think stood out. The writing wasn't necessarily what stood out about that movie to me. And Barbie, I think, is a writing mess. So this is a hard one for me to say anything.
To me, again, I haven't seen all these, but yes, Barbie, the most negative thing I can say about Barbie is that it's written very poorly.
Yeah. Yeah, that is the most negative thing you can say.
And Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach, is that how you say his name? I've seen other movies they've done together, and this is their worst movie. This is why I think it's strange that this movie's being nominated for everything.
Well,
because
she's nominated for Lady Bird just a few years ago.
They've done other pictures that are just so much better than this.
Yeah, this is an odd one. I'll have more to say on this when we've seen a few more of them.
Yeah, but I would agree that if Oppenheimer was going to lose in a category, just based on what I know of these films that I've seen in this category, Oppenheimer would probably lose. If it was going to lose one in one category,
yeah,
it would probably lose in this one.
Yeah.
But Oppenheimer, or I should say Christopher Nolan, is not known for his screenplays.
If anything,
In
they have
fact,
some fucking problems.
The biggest problems I have with
Is
Christopher
his
Nolan as a
screenplays.
filmmaker is his screenplays,
Yeah.
is his writing.
Yeah.
His directing is top notch, some of the best directing in film history, but his writing is not.
Leaves to
Yeah.
be desired. And then original screenplay, we have Anatomy of a Fall, The Holdovers, Maestro, May, December, and Past Lives. I've only seen one of these 5.
May December's fucked.
As bad or like it's hard to watch?
It's about statutory rape, a teacher and a student. It is.
Man, I just watched Sound of Freedom. Can I not get away from
It's an
that for like a
interesting
minute?
movie, but it's also extremely fucking sad. It's
Yeah. Well,
one of those movies that don't have a lot of resolution either. So you're just like, what the fuck?
yeah.
No spoilers, because that's not. The movie does do a lot of things. I think you might like it.
I do like tragedy, as messed up as that is, but
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see.
I get that it's here, but I also get that it hasn't been nominated for anything else because there are problems with the overall production of the film. But the writing is probably not one of them.
Yeah, this is tough because Holdovers is great, but I can't speak to the others. I am interested in Past Lives because I hadn't heard anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
But for any movie that has got both screenplay and Best Picture, usually stands out to me as it had to have some solid work behind it. And that's 4 out of these 5.
Yeah.
So
now
tough,
what
man.
we're going to do is we're going to go off on our own. We're going to slowly spend the next, 2 weeks?
yeah, I think it's not far from here. Let me
The
see
next
real
2
quick.
weeks or so watching these movies, as many as we...
March
Can.
10th is the Oscars. So
Yeah.
we have 4 or 5 weeks.
Let's take 2 or 3 weeks because I also want to promote our picks
Mhm.
at least a good 10 days prior.
Okay, so by March 1st.
Yeah, so we'll go back and watch as many. I think we should start, Thomas, where we started last year, which was on Best Picture.
Yeah.
And we go Best
and then
Picture,
go down from there.
acting, writing.
Directing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think this year will be a little easier because it seems like
A lot of them are the same.
We've seen about 60% of these films, whereas last year,
So many.
I think we had seen maybe 10% of the films that were...
last year, so for Best Picture alone, we had Everything Everywhere All at Once, All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, Banshees of Inisherin, Elvis, The Fabelmans, Tar, Top Gun Maverick, Triangle of Sadness, and Women Talking. And I remember, like, before we started, I had seen Avatar and Top Gun Maverick, and that had been it, which left 8 movies for me to watch.
Oh, shit. You know who I forgot to bring into the show?
David.
David was supposed to be here, but he couldn't make it today.
Yeah, I
Steve.
figured he'll be here. Oh, Steve.
Steve was part of the Oscar show last year.
Yeah,
we
you're
have
right,
to.
right.
I have to send
Well,
him.
both of them will be for round 2.
Yeah.
So that'll be where we hear their input on what'll take away some awards.
And I do like having Steve for these types of shows because he offers a very polarizing
Very
perspective.
polarizing perspective. Very.
If it was up to him,
shockingly
Batman
sometimes.
would win everything.
Bohemian Rhapsody and Batman. That would have been it. We're such fucking snobs.
Whatever. This is what we do, okay? Movies are our thing, so fuck it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So that gives us, 5 weeks to devour a handful of movies and see which ones are on streaming and which ones I have to sign up for a 7-day trial and which ones I have to go to the movie theater for. But yeah, one of the 37 subscriptions out there should have everything we need, right?
You know what they should start doing?
Oscar packages.
Is having an Oscar streaming package.
Yeah.
Where they make
I would pay for
deals
that.
with all of these studios where they pay them a percentage so they don't lose out. Because I know the benefit of a lot of these streamers or studios having nominated pictures is obviously the increased interest to see these films. So as long as you make it out to where they don't lose any of that extra money or revenue they would make off of being nominated, make some deals, put them in one place where we can all subscribe for like $10-15.
Or a single flat fee to watch these movies.
I would be willing to spend $20 to watch every single Oscar nominated film.
If I had a streaming package where I could watch at least the 10 Best Picture and maybe a handful of others, I would pay 30, 40, 50. I
Yeah.
honestly would.
Okay,
Because that's
yeah.
how much I would end up having to pay at movie theaters or buying or renting across the board or various, monthly subscriptions. I would do that.
Yeah.
And then I get access to all of these until Oscar Day or purchase them depending on there's a system. The point is
Yeah.
the point is they need to do something like that
Yeah.
and stop me having to have like 14 different fucking subscriptions at one point.
It's getting out of hand.
Dude, it really fucking is.
And this is me, someone who
You were all about it for a while.
I have every streaming service. I've finally started canceling not because of the money. Like, yes, it's annoying. It's not a financial thing. It's a fuck you thing.
Yeah.
It's like quit increasing the rate.
And still putting ads in.
Yeah.
No.
It's sheerly just stubbornness.
Well,
we'll
have an industry talk
Yeah.
at some point here too.
All right.
So that's going to do it for our first Oscar installment here. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Keep track yourself as to what you think will win. See what you can watch beforehand. Join us along this merry-go-round of, the same shit every year. But it's fun, and there's a lot of lights and sounds, and that's enough for me sometimes. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next time.